And thanks for tuning in to the Sean Inspires podcast. I am Sean Allen, your transformation life coach and podcast host. We are continuing in the series. It's the month of June. And so I have sitting in with me today a special guest. His name is Daniel Mangena. And so I am going to just give you guys a little bit of background information about Daniel, and then I'll let him come in his own way and introduce himself to the Sean Inspires audience. We are talking all things Father's Day, fatherhood, kings and leaders in entrepreneurship. So I'll go ahead and read Daniel's bio. After receiving a late diagnosis of Asperger's and experiencing what can only be described as life-shattering trauma at the age of 20, Daniel spent the next 7 years struggling to keep these revelation events from spilling into every area of his life. As a result of his struggles, Daniel built a simple 4-step system called the Beyond Intention Paradigm. I love that. Initially built as a lifeline grappling with suicidal thoughts, Beyond Intention was born, transforming Daniel's life from misery to celebration. Through his own struggles, Daniel found a path to lasting joy and purpose, and he wants nothing more than to share the tools that saved his life. To that end, he lives by his mission statement to spearhead an evolutionary uplift and universal consciousness by awakening people to the importance of their unique role that is already encoded in them by way of a deep and often ignored or undervalued passion defined as their dream. Through his motivational speech, Daniel shares his vision of empowerment and joy. The books he has authored is Do It With Dan podcast series, which is available on all major platforms. Regular blogs, published articles, and worldwide workshops have helped thousands actually all across the globe. His prolific work recently earned him a spot in the Wall Street Journal as a master of success, as seen on Wall Street Journal, Market Watch, ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox. Daniel, this is an impressive bio, but let's just come on in and tell the audience just a little bit about you as we enter into today's show. Welcome so much. I'm glad to have you here.
Well, thank you for having me, first and foremost. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to come and co-create this episode with you.
Absolutely. So tell the audience just a little bit about you. I shared that amazing bio, but in your own words, just give them a little sneak peek and then we'll go right in.
You know, I'm just a guy that seeks to contribute to the world in some way, shape, or form every day. That's literally who I am. All of the accolades and all of the stuff really is just the platforms that allow me to do that. I firmly believe that abundance is our birthright, it's our natural state, and every day I seek to find ways to remind people of that. And that's really what I get to do every day.
Absolutely. And so as I read your bio, thank you for sharing that with the listening audience. And it is indeed a blessing and so much power to have come into your place of purpose and step into it fully and empower others. If you could tell us, what was that path like, coming into that full spectrum and embracing that this was your divine life work? What was that like for you?
Painful, Sean. It was very painful. I think so many people look at this and think, I want to find my purpose. Finding your purpose isn't normally a pretty path. It's normally covered in pain and blood and things going wrong and you having to be pushed this way and that. Because if you look at how we're programmed as humans, we're not normally programmed to listen to divine guidance. We're not normally programmed to be open to being led by spirit. We're normally egoically trying to sort of fumble our way through life. And so ordinarily we go through the pain of that fumbling and at some point go through an experience that literally knocks us over the head and tells us, hey, this is where you're supposed to be. This is what is here for you to do. That was my experience. And it's been the experience of hundreds, if not thousands of people I've had the opportunity to speak to about coming to their purpose also.
Absolutely. So if you guys can hear that purpose, it involves a little bit of pain. So for those of you that are listening, do understand, as Dan has shared, that it's not always revealed and unpacked, and it doesn't come to you as we often think how it should. So embrace, as he mentioned, It can be bloody, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a path that is often not curved with a straight path. So, in hearing that, oftentimes, a lot of people, as you're mentioning, they may have great careers or they may have attained some level of success just as you have, but really coming into that full being, right? I want to talk a little about stepping into that full being and being able to now own it as you have
Mm-hmm.
owned it. And I know we wanted to wrap this show around empowering fathers. This segment
Mm-hmm.
is geared toward fathers, kings, and leaders. And I do know that you are a father. And so, what stepping into that role, in addition to your other leadership role in business, what was that dynamic like for you?
Mm-hmm. So I think, so my son's 18 months old. My son Ethan is 18 months old. I have a stepdaughter who's 6. I've been around her since she was 2. I thought that I got it. I've got a dozen nephews and nieces of varying ages, the youngest of which is 2.5 as well. I thought I got it before, but you don't really get the level of energy that comes into you to really want to have a hand in guiding someone the right way until you've got some DNA in the mix. And I know this is something that maybe people who've got adopted kids and whatnot might not really agree with, but I've been on both sides of that, right? I've been where it's, nephews, and my family is very, very close. So my nephews and nieces aren't just nephews and nieces to me. They are literally my surrogate children. And then obviously Ariana, being a part of her life so intimately. And now with Ethan, it's really wild what clicks into play in your inner being when you have that level of responsibility that comes forward. It's really crazy.
Wow. And I know that you are very much grounded in the work of spirituality and transformation. So for the fathers out there in the audience that are listening, that are struggling with this father thing, whether it's their, biological child or an adopted child, what are some pieces of advice that you could possibly share with them from a spiritual component that could possibly bring some ease and some comfort to that dynamic for those that are possibly new fathers, if you could share that with them?
So I was actually interviewed for the Today Show blog a couple of years ago on this. And it's really funny because I hadn't actually stepped into full fatherhood at the point of writing this article. And so it ended up doing this interview. And so it actually ended up coming back and being a balm for me when I stepped into full-blown fatherhood with Ethan later down the line. I was like, oh, wow. What I said then made sense, but it's a very different experience, just saying the words and living the words, and that was this. Nothing that you say is going to be as potent as who you are in your role as a parent. Nothing.
If you can say that again, I really want to drive that home and I want it to land. And I would like to allow that message to sit in a way that the fathers, as we enter into this weekend, that they can really, really use that message and work with it. So if you can say that again for us, please.
Nothing that you say is going to be as potent as who you are. Because these little beings, these little divine beings that just manifested into human form, they haven't yet learned the game of humanship yet. And so they're still very connected to spirit in terms of how they assess and view reality. And so they're not hearing your words, they're seeing the truth of your energy, which is being expressed by who you are. And so the example that we live of the integrity that we are to the ideals that we're speaking to them is what is going to lead them in the way that they should go. So how I treat Ethan's mum and his sister is going to guide him, programming him literally at this time as to whether he's going to be a gentleman or he's going to be one of those guys, right? How I am in integrity with my word, even in the seemingly little insignificant things, not just with him, but with the environment that he gets to witness energetically, is going to teach him as to whether or not he can trust me and whether or not he's going to then take on a garb of integrity himself, because that's what he's learned as an example, right? Whether I carry myself in a spirit of joy and whether I carry myself day by day in a connection with the divine is what's going to lead him to see whether that's what he should be doing too, because he's got no analytical function right now. He's literally this little spiritual sponge taking in the energy of the environment. And all of that is who and what we are, not what we say or what we're pretending to do or what we're putting on our vision board or putting in our mind movie.
That's amazing. And to hear that they are spiritual sponges and to share that and understand fathers that are out there listening, and this may be new for you. I love how he laid the platter out for you and to bring you into a realm of conscious thought, intention, and action. And being that father vessel that stands behind the word that they speak and the words that they say. If you say you're going to do it, dads, then we are encouraging you to show up in that way. That we have to break the cycle of making promises, right? And then there's no feet to the fire with action. Mm-hmm. And so this generation and the teenage generation and those who are fathering teenagers into their early 20s, you are very correct. They too are in fact moving in a way that it is purely not what you say, but it is purely based upon action. Mm. And what I've observed, even I just had a recent situation, and I want to share this for those that are listening, a 3-year-old cousin of mine soaked up every single thing that I would say in conversation at 3 years old, not even entered into pre-K yet. Mm-hmm. And at 3 years old, if you have a 3-year-old that can tangibly understand word and then model action, you are now a vessel of change and transformation. Mm. And to be a model of that consistently. And so in that way, I know you have a boy and a girl. And I know sometimes fathers have challenges on how to have conversations, with the young man as opposed to the young lady. And if you could share with some of the fathers who may have a girl and really don't know what that connectivity or what that relationship should look like, what would be some pieces of advice you could share?
So obviously the dynamic with me, with my stepdaughter was different because I'm not a replacement dad. Her dad is very active in her life. They spend a lot of time together. She's with him right now, for example. They speak pretty much every day. And so my role very much is just basically creating a contiguity of healthy expression of masculinity in her life when her dad's not there. And I think when we recognize that as children, they are looking for a balancing of those polarities to maintain a healthy energetic field, whether it's the divine mother or the divine father that we're stepping in to create that container for, as an example or as a counterbalance. That's where our role, I think, as parents really steps into a very deep spiritual work, because as a dad, I am demonstrating the qualities of the divine father for my son. And as a dad, then I am also providing the counterbalance of the divine masculine form for Ariana. So as a dad, ask yourself, am I creating a healthy container where this child is seeing both sides of the divine masculine and feminine in healthy expression as an example or as a counterbalance? So what experience of masculinity do I want this girl to have? Well, I want her to know that she can trust it. I want her to know that there's a healthy expression of love. I want her not to be seeking unhealthy expressions to fill that gap in her life later, whether it's in friendships or intimately. And again, what I say isn't going to do all of this. As children, they're again sponges picking up the truth of who and what we are. So we have to, I think as parents, we're being called to be in a very deep level of integrity, because that integrity is what's going to shine through.
Absolutely. And I know as a businessman, you've had some major successes and great pinnacles. I was a guest on your show about a month and a half ago, and it was such a great
Hmm.
time. I want to talk to the dads that are out there that may have been in their career, in leadership or whatever their role is in the workplace, in corporate America, whatever business sector that is. And for the dad that may have been sitting in the private chamber of his heart and mind saying, I think I want to step into entrepreneurship. I think there is something in that realm calling me, and I feel a strong pull in that direction. As an entrepreneur, how would you go about navigating him and giving him some sound wisdom and advice on taking that leap of faith? Because we know that sometimes fear can handicap us from making mental and physical action when it comes to attaining new goals, right? So what
Hmm.
would you say as a golden nugget to the fathers out there that have been holding on privately about, I want to step into this entrepreneurial, I feel like I'm called to lead in an entrepreneurial way? What would be some advice you would share, Dan?
I definitely want them to assess why they want to do that. And I'll tell you why I make that specification. Because a lot of people are running to entrepreneurship because they're running away from something else. And if you're coming to entrepreneurship because you're running away from something else, the likelihood is that you're not going to even be all that effective in entrepreneurship and creating value for others. Because how can I create when I'm running away? How can I give when I'm in a space of lack that's leading me to the space of running away? And so what I'd invite everybody to also understand is that a lot of businesses are not successful, and a lot of entrepreneurs they've actually just got a job that they don't like that's even harder on them than employment. And so I'd say, look, assess where you're at right now. Is it that you're in a role in the workplace that doesn't serve you and that you need to maybe develop some new skills to make a transition within the workplace? Because the unsaid fact that gets lost with all the sexiness of being an entrepreneur is entrepreneurship is not easy. Number one. Number two, a lot of people don't make it, and number three, it's not for everybody. So this isn't to put anybody off or to tell people to shelf their dream. It's just develop a very conscious relationship to what that dream is and where it's coming from before you start thinking about making that leap.
I love that. That's absolutely amazing. Great information and understanding why. So,
Mm-hmm.
guys, are you out there listening? First, ask yourself why. And I love how you turned the corner and you wrapped around and said, what are you running from? Because the
Mm-hmm.
very thing that you're running from may not be the thing you should be running from. So, really take time for everyone that's out there listening, daddies, fathers that are really having that in your mind, in your heart. Do some assessment, sit with that and process it, right? Because at the pinnacle of it all, everything that you touch, you want to last, but you want it to be successful. And so when we talk about success now, you have had great levels of success, and we know that success comes in times in seasons,
Mm-hmm.
right? And for the father out there that may have hit his pinnacle of success and feeling like I've done great in my family dynamic, I've done great in my career, and I just don't know what else is ahead. I know there is something else ahead. And you are a successful gentleman that has done great work in the realm of transformation. Could that dad who's out there be at a pinnacle of stepping into a new dimension of transformation? And if so, could you share what that might look like?
Well, I think it's important to realize that the nature of reality is always to be in growth and expansion. And so, technically speaking, we can never reach a complete pinnacle for ourselves as a whole. But what we can do is reach a pinnacle for where we're at this current phase of our life. So, something may have reached a pinnacle, but you certainly haven't reached a complete pinnacle. And so, it's asking yourself, well, do I feel complete? Do I have anything more to contribute here? Is my heart being called to go and experience, be, or do something more? And if it is being called to be, do, or experience something more, then am I ready to let go of the current identity that I have so I can step into the identity of the more that I'm going to need to be for that next phase? Because mark my words, stepping into something new is going to require something different. There's going to be a death of self. A part of the personality is going to have to die in order to be reborn into the version of self that's going to be called to go and do something new. So am I ready to let go of that? Am I ready to make those steps?
Absolutely. And as we're in that part of now talking about taking the steps forward and being able to let go, relinquish, and to move forward, if you could share I did a little bit of investigating here. You have so many things in your treasure. I want to talk just a little bit about micro shifting. If you could share what that is all about and how is it used to empower the dads that are listening out there? How would you use the art of micro shifting at this time and at this season of where many of us are, especially the fathers that we're speaking to today?
So microshifting is defined as a consistent series of baby steps made in the direction of a consciously chosen outcome. So consistent series of baby steps made in the direction of a consciously chosen outcome. So to break that down, first and foremost, we're consistently moving forward, but we're not moving forward in big leaps. We're moving forward in what I call minimum deliverables. And a minimum deliverable is what is the minimum that I can do without resistance that's still in the direction of my outcome. As an example, story-wise, there was a guy who came to me a few years ago. He was stuck in procrastination around starting his business. And I asked him as a first thing just to go and buy a journal. And he said, "What do you mean go and buy a journal?" I said, "Just go and buy a journal." So he went and bought a journal, comes back. I said, "Okay, put the journal by your bed." Okay. And then I said to him, for the next week, open up that journal every morning before you go to sleep, when you wake up, and every night before you go to sleep. Just open it and close it, open it and close it. Then put a pen by it, open it, pick up the pen and put it down. And he's like, "What is all this that this guy's asking me to do?" But the thing is that what was happening is he was building compliance within his inner mind. And that compliance meant that then when I said to him, now when you open it up in the morning, when you open up in the evening, I want you to write a word that says something that you want to feel that day or that you felt that day. And he was able to do that. So then when I actually then, after a long time, turned around and said, "Now write down why you're not actually executing," he was able to do it without resistance because he built this momentum that led to him being able to do it. And he had an immediate breakthrough. Now he's got a podcast, he's published 2 books, he does loads of press and media, he's changing lives. But all of that was able to break through because he was able to face what he was holding him back. But we got to that through the micro shifts leading up to him being able to have the compliance within him to actually let go and go forward.
Absolutely phenomenal. And you're the money master of teaching multitudes about manifestation, specifically when it comes to money, currency. And I know this part of your work is not gender specific, even though this segment of the show is geared to fathers. Mm-hmm. This is your area. This is your art. And, mm-hmm. and this is a very intimate area that many of us who want to become great money managers. I know for myself, I was just sharing with a few of my family members, we were laughing about savings account and we passed the old bank here. I'm here recording from New Orleans and we passed this old financial institution. And I said, "Oh, I was 14. I remember when I had my first passbook savings account." And mm-hmm. they were like, "Really?" But we start from young on how to mm-hmm. build that relationship with money and how we manage money and how we are determined by how we steward the money and wealth that we're given. So as the money master and architect of wealth that you are, if we could just share, I would like for you to just share a little bit of your expertise in that area and tools for those that are really, we're going to shift the dynamic because oftentimes when people talk about money, they say that it always has to be in a bad way. But today we want to talk about money in a great way. And what are some ways that it doesn't matter the amount of money that they have, how would they continue to steward it well, use it for good, and continue to build legacy?
First of all, you need a healthy relationship to it. You have to have a healthy relationship to it. And that's not going to come from resistance. It's not going to come from judging it. It's not going to come from saying that it's the root of all evil. There has to be a healthy, loving relationship with money in order for you to be able to deal with it lovingly. If you think about an intimate relationship with humans, right? If you're judging someone, making them wrong, or not liking them, then how are you going to be able to work with them positively? And yet we've got all of these judgments that we have around money and people who have money. And yet we think that we're going to then be able to step into being one of those people. You know, people that say, oh, rich people are this, rich people are that, and blah, blah, blah. And then you think you're going to be able to develop riches, but you've got an energy of resistance and rejection around that. So the spirit of money is not going to have a home with you. So before we even start looking at all of the activities with money, we need to look at the relationship to money so that we can have the money that allows us to have the choice as to what kind of stewardship a relationship we're going to have to it anyway. I want to do good with money, but I think all rich people are evil, you know, fandangle Google bots. How are you going to do that? It's not going to be able to happen. So it's letting go of your thoughts, stories, narratives, and ideas about other people's relationship to money and focusing on building a healthy one yourself. That I would say is the first step.
I think that's great, Dan. Building a healthy relationship, just as if you were in a loving partnership relationship with your spouse, correct? You want to build and relinquish any judgments that would destroy a positive, uplifting narrative of that dynamic. And I know we're just a few minutes getting ready to close, but I would like for you, as I do with every single guest, I would like for you to leave with the fathers and the general audience that are listening out there a word of inspiration and empowerment that would shift the fathers into micro shifts so that they could become the best version of themselves and continue to lead and live well by great example. So if you could share a word of inspiration, that would be awesome before we wrap the show.
Well, first of all, thank you so much. And to all of my audience that are tuning into this, be sure that you check out the episode with Sean on the Do It With Dan podcast, and be sure to subscribe to this podcast and support him because he's doing a great work in the world. So with that being said, I think it's just letting go of this idea that we can control more than we can. There's a principle called the circles of influence that reminds us that there's things that we have direct control over and things that we don't. But if we were to pour our energy, pour our heart into those parts of our experience that we do have a conscious, direct relationship to, then we'll actually find that some of those secondary level items actually end up being a lot better taken care of and actually having a lot more of a positive relationship to them. So focus on where you actually have a direct influence and pour into that lovingly with intentionality and with grace.
Amazing. Pour into it lovingly with intentionality and grace. I love that, Dan. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I would like for you to share with the listening audience how they may partner with you, how they may co-create with you. If you could share with the listening audience how they may connect with you, that'd be awesome.
The best way to do all of that, Sean, is just for them to head to dreamwithdan.com. We've got quite a comprehensive website with ways to communicate with us. Follow us with social media. I have a blog on there. My articles in different magazines are there. Connections to all of the free resources there on the website as well, including any events that we've got going on. And at the time of recording, we've actually implemented that every week we're going to have something of service for the world, whether it's a challenge like we did last week, some kind of masterclass, something that people can tune into and be served by.
Absolutely. I love that every week. So that's fresh, hot news. You didn't tell me about that before we came on. So I love that. Guys, make sure that you download, subscribe to Dan's podcast. Dan, I honor you today because you are a father. And so I say to you, continue to sail, continue to soar, and continue to be that vessel that is inspiring multitudes of people all across the globe, but most of all, you're being that example in your near community, which is your family. So all the best to you, my dear friend. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Sean Inspires Show. Do log in, download, subscribe, share with your community. We want to inspire you. So with that being said, stay strong and stay inspired. Until next time, bye now.